Hi, welcome to Inside the Moms Club, where being a mom is the coolest place to be. Here in the Moms Club, we believe that what embarrasses you now will make a great story later. And let's face it, you don't laugh sometimes, you're gonna cry. Join us in having a good laugh together. I'm Monica Samuels. You are now inside the Moms Club, your private destination for all things mom.
If you see me running,
Hi, moms. Welcome to Inside the Moms Club. I'm your host, Monica Samuels, and I'm here today with my co-host, Julie Orchid. Hello, Julie.
Hello. Just by the skinny skin, I almost didn't make it. Here I am.
We just finally found each other, which is a miracle, yesterday on a plane because we have been traveling like both of us. So my schedule, we'll see who can beat whose schedule. So in the last 3 weeks, I have been to Walt Disney World with my mother, sister, and niece, came home to Austin, Texas, flew back to Disney World to go with my friend Leslie, who we all know.
Sorry I missed it.
Came back to Texas. Now I came to California. I go from here to D.C. I go from D.C. to Miami. I go from back to Austin, and then I go to London. So see if you can beat that.
I think she just beat me hands down. Okay. Like, I'm not even going to play with that. But, you know, I mean,
no,
I've been a lot of places too.
True.
But, you know, I have a daughter in North Carolina, so I must go see her quite often. And we meet up at places like at, you know, your lovely place and Jennifer's place that, you know, got to go to the beach. And I went back to North Carolina again. So it's really kind of just a bounce back, but it's a lot.
Weren't you in Colorado somewhere in there?
Oh, yeah.
See,
you guys,
I'm telling you.
I forgot.
But that's my point of even bringing this up.
Thank you for reminding me.
We are losing our minds.
Yeah.
Literally. I mean, like,
You've
not
done
all
some
there.
weird stuff.
I've done some weird stuff. So in all of this moving around and traveling, the other day, in one day, I went to grab some lunch at this fast food place. Well, nice fast food. It was health food.
Yeah.
And I went to open a stevia packet to put in my iced tea, and I opened it up and literally poured it into the trash can.
Yeah.
Then I'm holding the thing, and I'm thinking, why did I just do that?
I don't know. I feel like I've had like small mini strokes the past few weeks.
That's kind of what it felt like. And then I topped it off by going to my allergist, and I stopped off in the ladies' room, and I left my little parking ticket on the sink. And I went to leave the parking garage, and I didn't have my ticket. And this guy, he's like, that'll be $40 for a lost ticket. And I'm like, I am not paying that. And I had a line 7 cars deep behind me, and I literally refused to pay. It got to be really... I think
it's when you threatened to back up and call the 7 cars to move out of your way. You're going to get your car. You've lost your mind.
Well, I did. I got out of the car and told all the 7 cars, back up. And that's when I realized, you know, I'm just not...
Well, I've done...
to take a break.
I've done 2 things. The cat at my house really loves milk. And I pulled it out of the fridge, didn't give him any, and then put it back on the shelf in the cabinet, not the refrigerator. And he's like looking at me. And then that's one thing. And then yesterday at Southwest Airlines, I ran to the desk, practically tripped over. I'm on standby. And she goes, "Hi, Julie. How do you know who I am?" She goes, like, "Because you're late and you're on our standby list." And I was like, "And you've been here last week and the day before and the day before."
We've seen you a lot.
We've seen you a lot.
But then she calls me because she can't even.
Oh, I did say that.
She calls me and she said, "Okay, Monica, you're going to have to put in your best acting job.
Yeah.
You're going to have to feign an illness or an injury to hold the plane up." And I said, "What kind of plan is this?" Because they're going to take me to the hospital. And then
it's like, just sprain your ankle. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Plan. It doesn't have to be a heart attack. Just a little, hold on.
Well, anyway, we made it.
We made it.
We're here.
Yeah, we're so excited to be here.
We're very excited to be here in Los Angeles. And we had to switch hotels because it's really booked here. We don't know what's going on here right now. But yesterday was a little... We love our new hotel, the Hilton at Universal City.
Yeah.
But when we got here, we go upstairs to our room, and it's room 1666.
So the last part was 666.
And then we open the door, and out the window we have a view of Hogwarts.
Yeah.
So I was like, should we change rooms, or is this...
I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah.
I haven't heard from my youngest child, which is, pretty normal. And then the minute I post a picture of Hogwarts saying apparently this is a big deal, and, she immediately fires up her phone. So listen, there's ways to get their attention.
You did get their attention, and in a good way.
In a good way.
And not in a difficult, traumatic way.
Yeah. And then I told her about my evening tonight, heard nothing, and then she went, wait, what? So,
yeah. No, that's
exciting.
all good. It's good to have good things.
Yeah, got to get their attention.
Sometimes things aren't so good, but we can make lemonade out of lemons, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even in the worst of circumstances.
Absolutely. And that is
why we're very excited today to have our guest, because she's going to tell us how you can do that.
Yeah.
Our guest today had to navigate a very challenging upbringing as a child, but she's bravely moved forward as an adult, and she's written a book about it called Toxic Family: Transforming Childhood Trauma into Adult Freedom, which shows her journey through abuse, addiction, and surviving narcissism, which we will be talking
You're looking
about.
at me. Mm-hmm.
All the while creating a distinctly empowering personal and professional life. Welcome, Susan Gold. Welcome to the Moms Club.
Hi, Susan.
We are so thrilled to have you today and talk to you about your book. I guess we wanted to get started with just your life story. I mean, you've had an amazing career in Hollywood, and before that, I guess you did some work in New York. I mean, you've done some amazing things, but you started your life, you were the middle child of 5 children in kind of a rough childhood. Is that correct? Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and what led you to write your book?
Yeah, it was hurt and damaged children, raising hurt and damaged children. My dad's a genius astrophysicist, but he had a little trouble with the drink and womanizing, and was a bit of a narcissist himself. And my mother self-soothed with food. And back then they prescribed diet pills, which were straight speed. So let's just say the platform was not so stable.
Yeah.
And I dreamed of getting out of that family system. I was 10 years old watching Barbara Walters on my beanbag chair in my basement, praying I could somehow make my way to New York City. And I left that home when I was 17, the morning after I graduated from high school. And at 19, I was in New York City doing an internship from college. And after college, I went back and worked for ICM, which is a large global talent agency. And for a side hustle to earn some more cash, I became an exercise trainer, and Barbara Walters became my client.
Oh,
wow.
That is good fortune there. Yeah.
That is some interesting information for sure. That's amazing. And she's as dreamy as everyone, as we all thought. If we had known her,
she would love all of you. She was a girl's girl. She would have loved Inside the Moms Club, been all for it. I tapped on her door one morning at 7 a.m. and she said, "Susan, get in here. What is going on?" And I didn't tell anybody my stuff. And within moments, she got it out that I had been harassed, sexually abused in the workplace the day before. And she said, "Susan, I'm coming to work with you this morning. We're going to confront this gentleman together."
Well, good for her. That is
amazing support.
That is awesome. So you went on to do, you're produced for TV and film, and you're also an endurance athlete. You did the Escape from Alcatraz. Is that what I understand?
I did. And when the triathloning got too much, I steeled up and became a national master swimmer within 4 years. So I was very focused, but found that I was using that like a heroin addict would use heroin, just to garner that self-worth from the outside in rather than the inside out.
So how do you push yourself like that? Because I think we all have dreams of pushing our bodies to the max, or really just trusting your body on what it can do. I mean, would you not agree that it is really one of the best mental health things that you can do for yourself? I mean, we know there's talk therapy, there's all kinds of therapy, but I'm impressed with what you've done and the endurance of it. So give us the secret.
When we were growing up, it was like the Kennedy family. We were all competing for whatever scraps of attention were, and a lot of it was through athletics. And so I had that background, but the drive and the tenacity at which I went at it, especially, you know, that escape from Alcatraz triathlon, that was really brutal. But what I wasn't doing was listening to that little intuitive voice in my heart saying, oh, this is enough down here.
Yeah.
We need a break.
Yeah.
So that was ultimately forced upon me. You know, the universe did for me what I could not do for myself.
Yeah.
And
You
it
couldn't
fell
run
away
from it
and I
anymore.
had to.
Yeah.
So you you convinced Andy Warhol to do an on-camera commercial for Pontiac. How did you?
Which was so good.
How did you manage that?
So remember that day that Barbara Walters wanted to come to work with me to confront my boss? Well, I made her stay at home. I confronted my boss. I was promptly fired. I was newly sober. I had 2 months of cash in the bank. I was terrified I'd go back into an abusive relationship where the gentleman held the purse strings, I'm embarrassed to say. And Barbara offered me an assistantship, which I turned down. I said, Barbara, I can't do it after the experience I've had. So I decided to match celebrities with brands, got matched with Donnie Deutsch, who's a bit of an icon now, but then was running his dad's ad agency, and he wanted Andy Warhol to do an endorsement for Pontiac. I couldn't get anybody to answer at the factory, so I went down and I knocked on the door, and Fred, Andy's business manager, answered, listened to me, said, come back tomorrow. And I did.
Why go small? Just go straight to Andy Warhol. Like, I mean, why even?
Yeah, that's kind of common sense. Isn't
really,
it?
of course.
If you want him, go to him.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, interesting.
I was going to make it work.
I know, girl.
Regardless. Yeah. So I went into the studio. It was black, pitch black. I was terrified. The pin spotlight was coming down on that platinum hair. There were 3 pugs running down out around the studio. He was scribbling. He wasn't listening to me. He could care less why I was there. And finally, he looked at me in the eye and he said, now really, why should I do this? I said, because you can have the pugs in the shot with you.
Listen, that's a way to our heart through the dogs.
Very, very, very smart.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have a question for you.
Sure, Julie.
You ready? So you also did an interview, and you've done many things, but you also talk about surviving divorcing a narcissist. And I think that a lot of women, possibly over 45, 50, a lot of men, you know, that were married to women, or any relationship, these have become kind of buzzwords. And you, by listening to that interview that you did, I actually feel like your message could help people feel like they've actually understand it, or they also may survive this type of experience.
I actually know some people who have divorced alleged narcissists. I'm a lawyer, so I have to throw that in there just in case this person listens. But yeah, share with us. Okay, so how do you know? Now, actually, let's go back a little bit on your book and your story. You were damaged as a child as a result of your parents were damaged as children, I guess, as the sort of, you know, you go down the list. Do you think that experience led you to marry a narcissist or to get involved with a narcissist? Was there like something about your personality, something about being raised like that and having that experience that led you to be attracted to someone who was a narcissist? And if, for everyone out there, how do you know that you've hooked up with a narcissist? Like, what are the telltale signs that, hey, I should get away? This won't work.
I didn't have the highest of self-esteem coming out of the family system that I was raised in. And I did pick from the lowest hanging fruit. And I was codependent since second grade and Billy Fritz. So I had to have attention of males to feel whole and centered. And I call my ex-husband my greatest guru as a teacher, because he ultimately gave me the gift of showing me my power and my respect for my being. But it's usually women and men who are incredibly accomplished, highly intelligent, that fall prey to these circumstances. You go through this period of love bombing. They say everything. You think you've met your perfect match, and it's bliss. And then all of a sudden, the cracks start to show. For me, it took a long time. It took until I bought our family home. And then the pressure started to escalate, that the wheels came off, the mask dropped, and I saw who I was married to.
Well, I think it's critical that you are explaining some of these terms that we have heard a lot of, and really since COVID has come out in the past 3 to 4 years, of love bombing, gaslighting, narcissism. It's a topic that is, people were unable to put, explain it or put, definitions to it. And you've done an incredible job. And I want you to know that, like if people would listen to this, that you are really, your legacy will go far.
Well, and share some of that with us right now. So give us some, how did you get out of that relationship? How did you, because when you're an enabler, I think one of the most difficult things about being someone who's an enabler in a codependent relationship like that is it's hard to value yourself and get out of it. Because an enabler constantly wants to fix things.
Yeah.
So you think, I can fix this. I'm a good person. I know I can make this person. But ultimately you can't. So what's the secret sauce there? How did you get out of your relationship, or how did you have this courage to do that? How would you advise other people that find themselves in that situation? What's the first step to taking the biggest step, which is to end that relationship?
Well, the awareness is first. You have to see the dynamic and the dance you're living, and then you have to accept it and take the steps. And what's essential when divorcing one you feel may be a narcissist is absolutely no contact. That means no verbal contact and even no eye contact. And I had the gift of being a longtime meditator where I held silence on, long-term retreats. So we were in the same domicile. I can't even call it a home. He took up residence in the master, while I, by choice, took a mattress to our partial conversion in a garage. And it was 1 calendar year. I had to dive in and go somatically through my body to explore the trauma pockets and see why I was living in a relationship where I valued myself in such a limited way. And it was 1 calendar year in that circumstance before I could write him his 6-figure check and he could go on to his next source of supply. And he was my biggest teacher because he reflected it back to me, those pitfalls that I had fallen into over and over and over again.
Well, you bring a really good point to this because and I have listened to it so I can talk about it, but the somatic therapy, please touch base on that. A lot of people, and I think this is also touching base on your book, because who knew that trauma from your childhood could show up so dramatically in adulthood? So you mentioned somatic therapy, and I'm sure you talked a little bit about that and, bringing that up in your book and stuff like that. So if you could touch base on that and what brings you great joy after that, because you look so happy now. So, and we like to laugh
Thanks,
too.
Julie.
So, yeah.
I do. I love to laugh. And I am very happy because I'm living in a new zip code. I am truly in authentic freedom by facing what was one of my biggest nightmares. And I had years of talk therapy, and I have reverence for talk therapy. It helped me lay down a storyline and understand my story. But ultimately for me, I feel in my body, and it takes somatic work, meaning exploring trauma pockets in my body, the color, the texture, the timeline. Some of this stuff was ancient, had nothing to do with my present, but I was still carrying the trauma in the cells of my being. And so I did find myself straight back to where I started with the talk therapy. It was serving to re-traumatize myself, and I needed to shift on a cellular level.
Yes.
And that's what somatic therapies, it could be using your voice.
Yeah.
It could be meditating. It could be movement. It's all sorts of things, but that's ultimately what served me and helped me break the cycle.
I think that's why I go to so many concerts now. I've done it through music. Maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know.
No. It's interesting. You're very, very accomplished. And in so many things. I mean, in your work life and in just even being an endurance athlete, and so many very accomplished people come from very toxic families. I've been reading Walter Isaacson's book about Elon Musk, and I'm like, so if my child wants to, if I want to raise a billionaire, I guess I need to have my husband needs to abuse that kid, and we need to send him off to, fend for himself at some place where he's going to get beaten up regularly. I mean, that's not healthy at all. And yet you read lots of biographies of famous people who've just done so many amazing things, and they had really horrible families, actually. What do you think? Is it just the strength that comes out of that experience, or why do you think that is, that happens? Oftentimes, some of the most successful people we meet have had some pretty
rough times,
damaged childhoods.
Yeah. I wanted to prove myself different. I wanted to prove to my family I was worthy, and I was highly driven. So there's just a propulsion within me, but it also can come from a very loving place, and you can still have that drive. I think I came out of the womb in type A++, and I had a very specific contract for what I wanted to experience in this life. I just think next time I'm going to read the fine print a little more carefully.
Maybe wake up a little sooner.
Yeah.
I can speak from experience.
What was your experience? So you have 4 siblings. What was their experience, and how did have they come out of whatever the trauma they suffered, or did some of them deal with things still, or how did everybody's different, but you all experienced the same thing, but maybe in different ways? What was that like?
Monica, that's a very insightful question, and thanks for asking it. We all have very different experiences growing up in the same household. My sister thinks she had an idyllic childhood. She feels embarrassed by it. And my oldest brother, with whom I have the most abuse, his childhood is almost all amnesia. So when he read the book, his construct was ripped apart. And he called me and we had a conversation. And he said, honestly, I don't remember most of it, but I am so sorry I wasn't a better brother to you. And I love you, and I am proud of you for the way that you've been able to share your experience and the way that you've chosen to live your life.
Well, that's beautiful. And I think you probably pulled words that he's been trying to say for so many. That's how I felt when I read some of your stuff. I was like, this woman has pulled words out of my mouth where I feel like I've known you a really long time. And you really, honestly, probably saved him years of therapy with that one, by writing your book and him being open to seeing what you have seen. And go ahead.
I just find this so fascinating, because I know of another situation where there was a family dynamic, and one of the children in the family, they talked about it, and one of the kids has been so traumatized by certain events of childhood, and the other one, who I know very well, doesn't remember any of that. Like, blocked it out. I mean, it would be kind of interesting. I don't know if in therapy anyone ever does this, but bring siblings together to talk about what happened to them. And piece it all together, as opposed to, individually going. Because, you forget all about that, how important that dynamic is. And the experience you have as a child, you're super vulnerable. And you're experiencing that vulnerability when you're in a bad, toxic family dynamic with other vulnerable people, your siblings, and people, same sort of situation. So as you grow up,
it's fascinating.
It is fascinating.
Like I said, having toxic, childhoods, or everybody has a little bit of something. But do you have any audience that you specifically love to promote your book or speak? You know what I mean? Like, you could do a million things, right, to talk about your book. But is there a certain group of people that you always kind of get excited about? Like, I get to, talk about my book. And
who do you love reaching the most?
Who do you love reaching? Thank you, Monica.
I love women, especially the women in your audience. That's my target. That's my dream. That's my lush. Because, a lot of us have just gone on achieving like the template says. And we have achieved. But here we are in this place going, why don't these pieces fit? And why am I so exhausted?
Yes.
So, it's women that are listening to the Moms Club.
Yeah,
okay, listen out there, moms.
Listen up. Yeah.
And it's helpful on so many levels, especially if you're in a toxic relationship. Think about how it's affecting your children. And if you grew up in one, think how it might have affected you, and maybe what you need to do
I mean, I think one of my favorite lines that you have talked about, Susan, is that you really teach people how to, the outdated storyline, right? We want people to start living again, and we want people to like really realize their worth, because when you are going through something like this, a lot of times that your worth can, go and tank. So the outdated storyline, we acknowledge it, and you really put, words, to paper, and really are very helpful. So
let's also, you touched on your marriage. What do you think initially attracted you to someone who turns out to be a narcissist and was so bad for you?
Well, you have to remember that I'm living from the outside in, so I'm not paying much attention to those red flags of warning that I'm feeling in my gut. I'm shoving those away. And this guy could pick out all the positives and play on them. He stepped right out of a golden age of Hollywood movie. But what I didn't understand is he really had. He had no construct that was authentic. He had been horribly abused as a child, and he learned he was not enough. And that's why he created this false persona to be enough and okay. And I didn't understand that until I was deeply into it and not prepared to let go.
Wow.
With a narcissist too, I guess as long as you're feeding their needs, they're okay. Like getting rid of a narcissist is not easy. If they think that you're fulfilling whatever their needs are, they, as well, I know of someone who was in a relationship it was very, it was, back and forth it was a battered woman sort of situation where this person was basically, I'll just say it was me. Okay. I was engaged to a guy who I was told was a sociopath. And it took me a while to figure it out. But we were in and out of this relationship where it was like the minute I was, okay, I'm out here. I'm done. I can't take it. He would draw me back in. Oh, you're so amazing, and you're this and you're that. And I will never forget one instance where he broke up with me, and he said, let's one more time, let's play that song that we always loved. And I'm like, okay, let's play that song. And he turns this music on, and he starts crying. And I'm like, why are you crying? You're breaking up with me. But it was all very manipulative. It was all very, that's what I'm saying. It takes great strength. And that's why I admire you so much that you came out of that. And it takes a long, long time sometimes to,
Yeah, I mean, her biggest secret, Susan, is that you cut it off. Like, you can't go toe to toe.
And that makes co-parenting very tricky because you have to hold that no contact. So now there are fancy apps and you can do third-party communication and all that kind of thing. But what I did was I created the same responses. There were 5 of them. And he would send these long-winded, zany emails to which I would just send a one-sentence reply, which was usually, please ask our son. Because he was old enough to make decisions. He was old enough whether he wanted to go with his dad that weekend or not. So they love to keep you, Monica, like you were implying, on the line. They need supply to be alive, and they will do it at any length. They do not have your own best interests at heart. They are working hard for their own survival. Be grateful you're not in that body, having to live that way. How horrific.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I have to laugh because when you just said that, I got a response the other day that says, please don't respond to me that says, ask your child. I mean, it just is like, you want to say it, but like, he's already ahead of the game, which is, you know what I mean? Like, please don't tell me to ask my child, because I was literally typing it. Please ask her.
He already knows he already knows the dance here on this one.
So
But
What advice?
But that's the dance, because if you reply in any other way, he will use it as a hook. And I promise you, Julie, you'll be in bed for 24 hours.
Oh, okay. Trust me when when I say I know. But Monica and I don't dance very well, so we're already ahead of the game, right?
Yeah, I'm absolutely the worst. You know, you bring up something else though. We're talking about toxic families. You have a son, and you just mentioned it.
Yeah.
If your son sounds like his family situation wasn't the best because he has this father that's what he is, and then, you know, you're struggling with that. How have you helped him, or how have you managed, navigated that situation, knowing that for him, that's probably, he was in a toxic family, or potentially a toxic family based on those dynamics?
Yeah, Monica, thanks for bringing that up. It was my biggest fear and why I wanted to hold on. But then I realized this was more of a ruse to keep this dance going for his benefit. No, that wasn't a benefit. He had to learn what the boundaries were. He actually knew how to draw boundaries and speak up to narcissistic abuse before I did. And he knows who his father is and what his capabilities are and what the boundaries are. And he's had to step up to the plate. And it's a hard lesson to learn, but he has a relationship with his father today, for which I'm very grateful for. And he has a clear knowing for the beginning, middle, and end to that relationship. But it was brutal, and it was one of my biggest fears. And I've always tried to treat my son as an individual. And this was when he was in womb. He's his own person with his own trajectory and his own desires of what he wants to experience. And I've tried to support him as an individual. And I'm so proud of that boy.
Yeah.
He's finishing his 4 years of college in 3. He's studying political science and international studies, and he graduates in May.
That is
Congrats.
great.
We all have one of those.
Yeah,
the majority
we have
of
May graduates
us.
coming
I was just
up.
about to ask you how old he is, and, you know, because people will want to know, because, you know, we have listeners all the way from very small children to, you know, people who are graduating from college. And
we know that age very well.
Yes.
So we might have you back for another show on parents trying to, you know, work with those.
Have them not move home.
Yeah.
He's 19. He's 19, and I think he'd rather, not move home unless it's absolutely necessary. He's already on his way to the internship that he thinks is going to turn into a paying job. So we'll see.
Oh, that's great.
Oh,
That is
okay.
terrific. Well, Susan, we have some moms who want to talk to you and ask you some questions. So let's invite in our Zoomer moms. Welcome, Zoomer moms. Welcome to the Moms Club. I'm just going to go around and introduce each one, and just introduce yourself to Susan, tell her a little bit about yourself, and ask your question. Hey, Laura, welcome to the Moms Club.
Hey. Hi, Susan. I mean, this conversation is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, we never can actually be in each other's shoes, but I think in some ways we all kind of relate in a little bit. And to hear your story, it's bringing tears to my eyes, really. And I'm pretty proud of you, as every mother, for raising our kids. And I brought up this question of, like, you said something about, like, how, you know, the narcissist probably came from a home that wasn't very loving. And right now, we're so encouraged in this generation to just be so loving to our children. And it's almost like, so can we eradicate narcissists? And, you know, I don't know, you know, but that's not even the question I wanted to ask. What I wanted to ask, because you're this phenomenal woman who's transcended this amazing career of New York to LA to Andy Warhol to, you know, and I am a New York model, actress, mommy. And, you know, I oftentimes think about, like, well, when does that stop? And when do I need to, like, make the decision to, I read that you moved to Montana, and that, like, that's like a dream of mine, right? And I question, like, so when does that end, and when can, like, my life begin? But you just brought up so much stuff in the last half hour that my brain's a little exploding, because I want to talk about a little bit like how as us as moms cannot create the narcissist, because I sort of feel like that was where the discussion was going. Mm-hmm. But also as us as moms can also fulfill our life fantasies and like our needs as moms to, to have everything that we want.
Touching base on a quieter life. I think that's important.
Well, it's also a good question. You don't want to raise a narcissist if you can help it. So
Laura, first of all, thank you for your question. And you are so beautiful. I'm so grateful you're here today. And thank you from my heart for asking that question, because I was concerned too. My son is my only child, and I wanted to be
my son is my only child. Yeah. So yes.
Yeah, I wanted to be an only child in that middle of 5-pack. But all I could do is demonstrate that he had his own life and praise him when it was appropriate, and say, hey, maybe look over here. You might be able to think about doing this differently. And he's going to have his own path. Maybe he will be a narcissist. I don't know. The jury's still out, right? But if he is, maybe his soul signed up for that experience. And all I can do is stand by and support his experience here on this wild, wacky world of Earth. And you have so much heart and so much love. I know you're a beautiful mom, Laura. Thanks for asking that question.
Oh. That's great. Leslie, welcome to the Moms Club. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and do you have a question?
Well, I'm a married mom of 2 kids. One is a senior at University of Texas, and one is a freshman at University of Denver. I was really curious about, and this may get too personal, and if this is not a question you want to answer, it's totally fine, but like, how did you write your book when your parents, are your parents still alive? Did you write the book and your parents have read the book? And then has there been a time of healing with you and your parents, after this? Or, were you ever able to really kind of tackle the issues with your parents and kind of come to some resolution and some healing in the parent side of it? I mean, it sounds like you tackled it with your siblings some, but, as parents and this, as you get later in parenting, you realize that, like, golly, we all did our best to be great parents, but like our kids could come back and say they were traumatized by X, Y, and Z. And so, you always want to hope that there's a healing mechanism in there. And so I'm just curious as how, do you have a relationship with your parents, if they're still living, and how did they respond to your book? And like, how did you ever get a chance to really kind of set a different path with your family?
Yeah, profound.
Leslie,
question.
Thanks for asking that question, and congratulations for getting your 2 children into college. That is an amazing accomplishment. So my father is still here on this plane, and he knew I was writing a book, didn't know about the subject matter, didn't want to know about it, but then ultimately said, do I really need to read this book? And I said, no, Dad, not if you don't want to. We've had a conversation. I know you did the best you could. And I love you. And here's the things that I love about you. And that's how I really feel. My book title was not Toxic Family. It was Magical Illumination, because that's how I feel it's been. But the publisher was right. The book is about a toxic family. So yeah, I wanted to go hide under the rug. I was so ashamed when she called and said that was the title, because I have a relationship. Yeah. My mom is gone. But I realized once she made her transition, we had been very telepathic. I lived on the opposite side of the country. I lived in LA. She lived in Ohio. And we were talking, we were communicating. And I can feel her energy. And she's super proud that I'm getting this story out, that I'm telling it. Because you have to remember, her father was beaten almost to the point of death, which caused psychotic episodes. He beat my mother, and she had to hide her trauma. And so here I am. I was beaten by my mother, then my dad occasionally. And now I'm telling the story from a place of love and a place of healing. So I feel she's really proud.
Yeah.
That's a great question, Leslie. And I'm glad, Susan, you made the point, because I wrote a book, co-authored a book years ago. And that's a little thing people don't understand, is when you write your book, especially a nonfiction book like that, the publisher decides the title and rearranges paragraphs and chapters and all kinds of things. But because there's another book out called something like, I'm glad my mother is dead or something, which I guess it's a good thing her mother is dead. That's a terrible title if you were her mother.
Depends on what she tells in the book.
Exactly. Helen, welcome to the Moms Club. Tell us a little about yourself, and you have a question for Susan.
Hi, Susan. I'm the married mother of a 12-year-old daughter, so I'm a little bit late to this Moms Club, shall we say. But my question actually has to do with some similarities from things that you've experienced to some observations I have of my own life. And do you think that, or did you, question or look back when you were writing the book and that experience that you mentioned with the harassment in the workplace from your employer? Do you think that this person was kind of able to determine that you had some childhood trauma and preyed upon you because of that? Because I feel like sometimes people, get a sense or get something and, that somebody might be more vulnerable than somebody else and decided, oh, I'm going to target this person. I'm going to target Susan.
So Helen, what a great question, and congratulations on your 12-year-old. I was a really old mom. I was 43 when I shot my son out the trail. So, anyway, I can't tell you about my boss that harassed me, but I can tell you a story about Roger Ailes, who called me up to his office after I had created the celebrity campaign on the network, and he was so thrilled. And he gave me the oddest interview. I mean, he praised me for what I did and said, tell me the name of the show you want to work on because you're going to be our best producer. But then he started asking me all these weird questions about my family and how engaged I was with them and how much I saw them. So years later, when he was accused of sexually abusing staff members and was dismissed, my college boyfriend called me up and said, by any chance, Roger didn't harass you, did he? And I said, oh, no. He said, well, you should check out the New York Magazine, I think a New Yorker interview about him. He gave me the exact interview he had given all of his victims. And I was so glad I didn't pass that test. So, Helen, I do think that I was emitting some kind of signal, but I think I've cleaned it up since then.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean,
great.
I read
Good
when you worked with, or, spoke to Roger Ailes, and exactly where my head went right away. I mean, I was like, I'm sure there was parts of him.
I think, anyone that's a woman would definitely, that would come to mind. Jennifer, welcome to the Moms Club. Do you have a question for Susan?
I do, Susan. Thanks so much for sharing your story. I think getting all this out is so important because the generation before us and the generation before that just swept everything under the table and drank instead, or they abused their children instead. And I think now, thank God, we're all just like being brave enough to like deal with the truth. And anyway, so, I'm my daughter's a psychology major in college. My son's a senior in high school. And having a psychology major has made me sort of like learn things like narcissist, sociopath. And now that I know these things, it's funny how you're like, oh my gosh, wow, these people do, you understand what history creates that. You understand, sometimes it's not a history, sometimes it's just a disorder that they're born with. But, I wonder, the best way for someone like me to interact with, my parents, my aunts, my uncles, and sort of talk to them about the trauma that they experience that sort of echoes through the generations. Because there's an amazing line by the singer Noah Kahan, and it's like, I'm still angry at my parents for what their parents did to them. And it's, to me, I hear that, and that resonates in my head all the time, because it really is, you're upset about a reaction to a reaction. And it's like ending that cycle is, I think, hopefully where we are these days.
Wow, Jennifer, I'm really glad you brought that up. And it's so significant and so poignant. And I can just tell you how it is with my family. It's uncomfortable. But when the family stories start coming up and people have a different version or whatever, I'll take it back a generation or two. And I'll say, hey, Dad, do you remember telling me about your great grandpa and blah, blah, blah? And I bring it from that perspective and bring it into his present because he had to hide what he loved. He loved history and music, but he had to go, down the science route because that was the easier, softer way, and shove those dreams right aside. So that's how we address it in our family. I go back, a generation or two, so it's less, immediate. Or we'll start talking about another sibling's recall of that incident and start giggling, and then get my father's recall and then my sister's recall and compare notes and start giggling and come at it from that way. So joy and laughter is really helpful when confronting family toxicity.
That's great.
I mean, that sounds like a whole... Go ahead, Jennifer. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. So my father's one of 8. My mother's one of 4. And it's funny because one of her siblings had 8 children. So we do have a lot of different perspectives on the same incident often. And it's hilarious how really you would not think these two people are in the same room witnessing the same thing at the same time.
Yeah.
They tell the story.
I mean, what you just described, Susan, and great question, Jennifer, is like there's a whole lot of healing going on when you can sit around and laugh about something that was pretty traumatic about how do you remember that? How do you remember that? And I think that for Inside the Moms Club, like Monica has been insanely patient with me, dragging myself from East Coast to West Coast, and that the fact that she's been a really, really good friend and put up with me in the past 24 hours. And so I just have to say that friendship is critical, laughter is critical, and a shout out to Jennifer, because when I've gone through some stuff in the past 3 or 4 years, and, I really thought, you're an amazing listener, and I really have to speak to you, Jennifer, today about you really taught me a lot about narcissism, and gave me a lot of information when I really thought you were going to turn the boat and go along, and that's not what happened. And friendship is critical, and laughing about stuff is critical, and I had to get that out. Sorry, Monica.
No, you're a really good friend, and that's why. I mean, it's just. And we laugh a lot.
We do.
And then that's what the Moms Club is all about.
That's right.
We support each other, and but we do a lot of it with laughter and fun, and you have to, because that's the best anecdote for a toxic family or a lot of things. I mean, pretty much everything. We've gone through a lot of stuff together, and it's all good. So, Susan, I know you do retreats and webinars and private sessions. I mean, share with us real quick what you do there and where we can find you on social media. And I want to mention again, Toxic Family, Transforming Childhood Trauma into Adult Freedom. Everybody needs to pick up your book.
Thank you so much for asking. Yeah, I love to listen to stories. So your listeners are welcome to come have a chat with me, because I would love to hear their story. And you find all that at my site, which is susangold.us. I like to say us, not US, because we're all in this together, and I feel it. susangold.us, and you're welcome to a one-to-one chat with me. Grab the book. It's all in there, including exercises that I learned along the way. And they're the same exercises I do now when I have to trudge through any kind of traumatic episode or just uneasiness. So it's all there.
Awesome.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been an amazing show. I've really learned a lot and enjoyed it. Well, it's been an amazing show. I can't believe that our time is already over.
I know.
But we want to thank our sponsor first, Pizza Shop, which is bringing New York-style pizza to the heartland. They're in locations all over the country and growing. And they're in smaller markets, so they're in places where they can only get, chain pizza. Now they're getting the real thing. And in fact, if you're an Ole Miss fan in Oxford, Mississippi, you need to check them out there and other locations around the country, and keep looking for them. Again, that's Pizza Shop. And you can find us on Instagram at Inside the Moms Club, on our website, InsideTheMomsClub.com. And we have some exciting news, moms. We're going on the road. You can find us live, in person. You can be in our audience, and we're going to meet the Zoomers live. We are so excited about that.
I mean,
that is a big
Live is a big deal.
I'm excited to meet moms all over America. I'm excited to meet you all in person and get to talk to you and meet you and laugh with you, especially laugh with you.
Yeah.
That's our motto. So, well, again, we'll see you next time, moms. inside the Moms Club.
That's
But remember
right.
our motto? What's our motto, Julie? If you don't laugh sometime, what's happening?
You are certainly going to cry, so
you
keep
are
laughing.
going to cry. Keep laughing, moms. We'll see you next time inside the Moms Club.